Just want to say welcome to the Outlaw Process Podcast show. Today we got a really unique episode. We got an episode where I get interviewed by Julian, and a lot of the questions, I have no idea what he's going to ask me. I'm just completely hit. I mean, this is completely live, no script. Ask me anything. And he does. We have a really good time. Julian's an amazing guy, amazing drummer. Probably one of the non-drummingest drummer that I know. I can't never get him to sit behind the drum kit. He's the only drummer I know that I cannot get him to play the drums when he comes over. Anyway, we're going to have a fun, exciting time. We're going to go through the whole process. This is actually an extension from the previous episode that we did last week. It was that kind of like, if you don't do podcasts very often, you know that it's very easy to extend the meanings of everything that you're trying to do. Man, it's really... You can just go down these rabbit trails, and that's exactly what we did. And that's what we're going to do on this podcast today. We're going to go through, he's going to ask us a bunch of random questions, and I'm going to answer them the best I can. Hang out. See you in a little while. Just want to say welcome, everybody, to the Process Podcast show. Today, we have an extension of the podcast we did last week. And Julian is back, and we're going to talk about a lot of cool things and hang out with us. And we're going to really go down a deep path of drums and just a lot of things that'll make us tick. Welcome, Julian.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to have the opportunity to beat this dead horse even further. So,
just want to say cheers, man.
Yeah.
Almost kind of has like a root beer kind of flavor, don't it?
It has an unsweetened flavor, which is very un-American of you. But, you know, what I want for nothing, my money back.
Well, I mean, last time we was doing some stuff together, you know, it was kind of a, you know, you liked it unsweet.
Yeah. I kind of vacillate back and forth between healthy and, you know, the carnivore diet or the carnival diet. And right now I'm in carnival mode, so.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Anyway.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for being in the podcast show. I don't got really nothing 100% planned. I just want to talk and see kind of what's kind of going on. I know you said you got some questions for me, and I got some questions for you, too.
I thought today would be a good day to kind of flip the script, and let's get some information from you for a change. Are you up for that?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so how long ago did you start Outlaw Drums?
We started Outlaw Drums, and I started Outlaw Drums as official in 2011. But we've probably about 3 years prior to that, you know, we was kind of developing the initial drums, you know, kind of experimenting with drums. And it all kind of balanced out where I didn't really like the sound that my current drum set was having.
What was your current drum set?
A Pacific drum set. And it was nothing fancy, nothing great, but it had, you know, so I didn't like the way it sounded because toms just kind of rang all over the place. So what we wanted to do is basically get a more of a solid sound that wasn't just, it wasn't so ringy. You know how it is when you hit a drum, it's just like, it's all over the place. We wanted something that was some mass to it. So that's what I wanted. And I started to develop different ways to try to do it. There wasn't no YouTube at that time. I don't know if there was a YouTube. I don't know if there was or not, but I didn't know nothing about it. It was just trial and error. And started to do that. So I took this old drum shell apart and just basically belt sanded some of the shells around, and then made some drum shells. And I was playing with a group of guys, and my buddy John at the time, he was like, man, them drums sound freaking amazing. What'd you do? What's the deal here? And and it wasn't nothing perfect. It wasn't just, everything was just basically hand sculpted. Like the shells didn't have any it was just all done by hand, and it still had a very unique sound, you know. So that's kind of what started the path right there.
So leading up to that, how serious of a drummer were you? Were you gigging or just kind of playing in the garage or what?
Just kind of playing in the garage. I really wasn't a out gigging drummer. Now, we did have a band room. It's basically where this stage is now. But we did have an old band room that we tore down that was just kind of a jam session, you know. It's just like some buddies would get together and we would just play some music. And, you know, I've always kind of loved working with wood, and this is my passion. And at the time, I was working for Lacey Builders cabinet shop over in Moultrie, Georgia. And Keith kind of showed me about the old heart pine and what it was and how beautiful it was and how like and I was like, I wonder how it would sound in a drum. And that's kind of where we went down that path and started making drums out of that old wood.
So how was the reception of that when you started coming out with pine drums? Because your big major builders, they're not using pine. What kind of response did you get when you actually hit the market with your your pine shell drums?
It was very nobody at the time has heard any drums made out of pine. It was a very different thing. And to my surprise, the tone was a more warmer tone. It's because the wood's softer. And to an extent, like heart pine is very hard too. So it has a hardness about it and a density about it. Because people most of the time think of pine being like some wood that you would like use on just a pallet or nothing very special. But when you really kind of get and pick the real tight growth rings of a piece of wood together, you can come up with a very unique wood that's it's almost like fur. It's real tight, and they've been making stuff like that for years, and just following the old path of that. But pine was definitely that. But later on, we started to kind of mess around with different types of wood and better economical and that kind of things. Because one of the fallbacks of the old pine is sometimes it's very difficult to use, and you have areas where the wood's very brittle. It's hard to mill. It's hard to work. So it can be very aggravating. At times with that.
Well, I think a lot of people associate your drums with reclaimed wood and all that. Now, when did that come about, that you were tearing down houses and using the reclaimed wood for drums?
We started doing that right away. Like, that was the thing that we was doing. Like, I had all the access to the old wood originally, and that's one of the reasons why we started to use that pine, because, heck, I was tearing down a house right down the road at that time. So I got some of these very unique wall boards that was like an inch thick, and we was able to just cut those into pieces, and I was able to just use that, just because it was ready available.
So your decision to do that, was it strictly economical, or did you think that, hey, this is really going to yield an awesome drum?
It was economical at the time because I had a bunch of heart pine, so that's why we was able to build drums, give a lot of them away. We tried a lot of things, experimented with a lot of things, try this, try that, find touring drummers to try it out and to make sure they was going to be, make the test. We had the sound, because I felt the look was there. The look did have that look, that uniqueness, so you could see an outlaw drum from a distance and know it was an outlaw drum. That's kind of what I wanted. I wanted somebody to kind of notice something just visually, if it was one of our drums or not. Right. But with the unique sounds and the tone of that, so it did play a kind of a unique part to that.
So what touring drummers, that would be known, have played your drums and responded with their feedback and that sort of thing?
Well, we started like the Instagram thing kind of early, so we got a lot of popularity kind of early when Instagram kind of came out. So we was able to kind of reach a lot of big artists, So literally, it was just a matter of just messaging them through Messenger, and be like, "Hey, we're going to be over here at this. I've noticed that you're playing at a venue right down the road. Would you want to be interested in trying out some drums?" And at the time, it was Jeremy Camp's drummer, Leaf. And I got to talking to him. So, yeah, come on, here's some tickets. So he sent me and the team some tickets. So we was able to come out there to the venue. And I gave him a snare drum. And this was the very first one. And this is the one of the heart pine ones. And he played it on stage over in Tifton. And he was just like, man, this thing really projects. And even the sound guys had to go in and make adjustments from the previous snare because it just projected so much, is what he was telling me. And he said, you on to something, man. And he was a good Christian guy. He prayed for us and everything. And so I haven't talked to Leaf in a while, but he's got one of the most original outlaw drums, snares. And then, we started, Todd Circleman He was playing locally as well too, so he's got one. He's got a couple of them, and he was playing locally, and so he went up there and was just like brought it to the show. He didn't play it on his show, per se, but he loved the way it sounded. And then the One Republic guys, Eddie, he's got like 6 of them that he uses on special songs that he has, especially if, like, he said there's a couple songs that he does that needs that projection that he uses an Outlaw on. The very early aspects of the drumming was a big thing. It's really one of the things that kind of helped us get to the point where we are,
So your interactions with these drummers along the way, has that been a highlight of this operation for you?
Yeah, I love the feedback. And we have drummers stop by all the time that come through here, especially if they're traveling, So that's why one of the reasons why we made a space for them to come stop by. They can come by and stop and check out some drums. And the interaction is the part that I probably love the most, is just being able to, number one, make something that's completely unique and trying to achieve a sound. Like somebody has like a sound they really want them to achieve, and trying to create that, by the edges or the wood type or the style of construction, and just basically on the ways that we make drums, So we don't do a lot of ply drums. So how I'm going to go about achieve it is on my knowledge base, which is not a lot of ply knowledge, but on basically solid wood, stave, and segmented style constructions, we're able to achieve a lot of that bodiness, where, how drums are made with the veneers layered on top of each other. But we've had a lot of issues come up too that we've had to like go in and adjust. Like, so for instance, like the Heart Pine snare drums, they sound amazing. They're great, but they I know I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit, but wood drums that are done that particular way, yeah, you may get the very unique sound of it, but at the same time, sometimes the stability from being outside in different climate controlled areas where, like, you're in Colorado and it's very dry versus you go on down to Louisiana, to Georgia and stuff like that, and it's real humid. So sometimes it affects wood in different ways. And I've learned a very, very important lesson one time with that. And one of the lessons was with the Toby Mac's drummer. They were playing a show, and I was talking to him because I would reach out to these guys like fierce, especially before now it's kind of classified as like spam. You can't even hardly talk to these guys now, but back when it just kind of come out, well, you can just message them. You can message the guys right, and I couldn't believe it. Like, and literally you can just be talking to, and that's how I met Brian from Casting Crowns. I just shot him a message, and it's like, hey, and he said, yeah, I've heard about your stuff and this and that. He's like, but what I was talking about, so through the different climate controlled areas, we had a snare drum he was fixing to play it on stage, man. It was freaking amazing. It was an amazing snare, but it's the humidity was very humid that day, and this trail was it moved just a smidgen. And the snare sound was just not there. He's like, and it was just sounded kind of flat. And I knew it at the time too, because, and it was all rushed, we had to go right then and everything. I didn't have a lot of the preparation. Literally, I just grabbed the drum, went to the stage. But I've learned a very important lesson about having your drums acclimate to that setting, and it's caused us to grow a lot through that. But with Toby Mac, they're huge, and their drummer too, he was like, man, something's wrong with this drum. And I was like, oh my God. He said, let me see that other drum over here. And he pulled out another one. I think it was like a Black Beauty. And it was just like, bang. And then he plugged mine in mine and said, dang. I was just like, I heard it right away. I was just like, yep. And it was, because he was fixing to play on stage. And so I learned about how wood can move and affect the sound in great measures with that, and that's dealing with the artist.
So what happened with this particular drum? Was it a situation where it just expanded, or did the shell come up, break apart, or what happened?
Yeah, this shell expanded. It got just a little big just because it was real humid. And, we was kind of learning a lot of this stuff too. It was just you can take a course or nothing on this. You kind of had to learn it as you went. It was kind of a trial and error thing. And we just basically had to learn by doing, and that's one of the things where it's shrank. Anytime like a drum, you have a hard time putting it on the drum head. If it has to kind of push it down on it, it don't just kind of flow naturally. I found that it's going to affect the way it sounds because it's resting on that ring versus being inside in diameter a little bit causes it to really be stable and causes it to be very unique.
So as you've gone along through these different processes and experimentations and all that, as you've had drummers out there experience these kind of problems, do you have a written hard-line warranty kind of thing, or how do you back up your product and for how long and all that?
We basically back it up for life, and then, to an extent. Now I can tell if drummers is like they drop it, broke it, and ran over it, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but for the most people that make drums like this, they have a kind of a appreciation and a respect for their gear. They're not as hard on it as I'm pretty hard on my drums. I'll typically throw my drums in the back of the truck and go. I want to test it. I want to see the durability. If I'm real cautious and don't ever test it or try it, you're never going to know how good it is and how strong it is and how, so that definitely makes a difference, I feel like.
Okay. So you started out and you pretty quickly were using the reclaimed wood. Along the way, what else have you done?
Along the way, we've developed like cajones, we've developed some guitars, we've done a lot of different things, but mostly we've been kind of in the realm of drums, because. And it all affects, old wood always is going to sound good because it's had time. And that's the thing. Time is the essence. And time pulls out all the moisture on the cells of the wood, and it causes it to get more resonate. It resonates cleaner. That's why a lot of these guitar companies, they go through huge processes getting their wood dialed in perfectly because they are really one that knows when you strum a chord, you have to have that thing resonate. And if there's moisture in those cells, it's going to hinder it, So it is a big thing being able to address and being able to just kind of go. But we developed since then different methods, which is the new sound control series that kind of like geared more towards a waterproof drum. Drums that could play underwater, they're not going to move. They're completely stable. And it was kind of like a joke at first, but letting drummers hear it, because I kind of almost felt like I was cheating in a sense, because I'm a wood guy, and what am I doing building drums out of a composite material? So I felt like people are not gonna be receptive towards that of the Outlaw brand, because we're known from the old wood, the old stuff. But through that, we just went to the Atlanta drum shop, and we brought a couple of the sound control series drums up there, and it was like they said that was some of those, and even Kent, Luke Bryan's drummer, he said that was the best sounding drums up there that we had. It was the sound control one, and it kind of blows me backwards. I was like, are you kidding me right now? I mean, this is a composite material. How does it have tone? Because what it is, it's very controlled, it's very consistent, and it doesn't. Like once you get it sounding good in one room, there's a good chance it's going to sound good in another room, because the wood is not going to completely acclimate differently to that environment. So it's caused us to kind of go with the punches and kind of see on what kind of works. And, for now, like a lot of times, like if somebody wants a heart pine snare drum and they live in a very different climate controlled area, we just have to take extra precautions getting the levels here to match where it's going, so there's no issues. And that was an issue for us. We would send drums to Texas and this and that, and where it's real dry, and what it does is it shrinks that shell some a little bit, and it causes it to, even drums even if you get drums completely 100% down to like a 5% moisture, and it's the environment that you're playing in is more, then there's a good chance that drum is not going to be consistent in their sound.
So if the sound control series is a new product for you. How do you know what the stability is on that?
Well, it's trial. We've tried it out. Like this, I say it's new, but we've been developing this product for probably like 4 or 5 years now, and have like a select amount of drummers that are playing this stuff, gigging it, trying it out, making sure that everything's great. Okay.
So what kind of R&D do you do on a new shell like this? Do you drop kick it into the neighbor's yard? Do you leave it out in the rain? I mean, you know.
Well, some of the earliest YouTube videos that we've done, we would like literally just grab them and just drop them off stuff. You know, even the old YouTube videos, we did that a lot with. We would drop them. We've got them soaking wet. We've just tried it and just letting people play them rough. And sometimes I'll pick like rough drummers that are like, and I'll work out an endorsement with them just because I know that that's the type of drummer that's going to put this drum through the test. Like I got a really good guy, Will Clark. He's a Sylvester drummer and he's phenomenal. And he plays a lot of shows. He's always playing shows. And he's just like, he is so tough on his drums. He is so tough. Like I've had to do so many repair works on his stuff, and it's caused me and it's helped me to be able to figure out the best thing that I can possibly, you know, do as far as making the drum strong and make it stable, make it hold up. Because the last thing, you know, you want is somebody playing the drum and the daggone air vent comes off inside the shell, and it's like, and that's happened. And I was like, okay, well, now there's a very strict protocol. When we go to assemble drums, we follow these steps, and every one of these things has a detailed precaution, you know, things that we have to do before the drum goes out. Because if there's not some sort of a standard application like that, you know, that like putting Loctite on the screws that need and being able to have everything, you know, but most is very important. So getting really, just having it, people try it. That's the only way you really find out how things work and how companies work, is just to try it out, try new things, see what works, and be able to kind of flow with that, you know, because it can be very difficult, you know, to do that, because how are you going to know if you don't try it? You know, being able to just throw yourself out there, get group of, and we do have an amazing Outlaw family support. And you know, Max and Pepper, of course, they kind of come in there and they'll do their thing to them too, I guess. So.
So you obviously have a passion and a dedication to the quality. So as far as in operation and in the construction and all that, do you have half a dozen people in there just pounding stuff out and slinging it out? Do you have your fingerprints on everything that comes through, or how does the production part work?
Well, it depends on our orders situation. A lot of the times, you know, when we was doing a lot of the big Guitar Center orders, you know, when we was busting out, you know, we like 100 drums in like a month. We had, you know, 3 guys in the shop. You know, and I was trying to keep my hands on all of it, which is very difficult. What we've done since then is kind of shortened it to where we're just doing really cool one-off drums and making them very individual. But every drum that goes out, I definitely have my hand on, for sure, from start to finish. It's not all the way through. But, you know, as I get older, you know, I am kind of finding it that I do need a little bit more help than what I used to. Just to keep them going in the milling process of it. Because it's very physical milling them drum shells, because this is a physical act. I mean, you have to hold this stuff and having a lot of upper body strength to turn these drums like you would, and I call it like you're turning the bus. You know, it's like a big gigantic school bus. You're holding it, you're having to turn it, and if you dip it too much, it dips, and then the drum's wasted. And then so every drum that does come out, I do have a hand in, and I do have a part in it, for sure, if not all the way through it, you know.
So with your deal with Guitar Center for the 100 drums, did you have a lot of quality issues since you had several guys working in the shop and it's going to a large retailer that takes stuff back if it's not liked or whatever? Did you have a lot of problems with that, or was all that pretty under control, or what?
That was pretty under control. Now, we did have to hire a couple of initial newbie guys. I remember one instance, we had somebody that was all they were going to do was just like help me box the drums up, like wipe them down and box the drums up. Well, the guy that was wiping down the drums, because sometimes the drums get little fingerprints on them and this and that. Now we use like a special gloves that we put on. And what happened is the guy that was wiping the drums down, well, that rag was used for edges, for burying it, so it had wax on it. So he wiped down all of that chrome with wax. So every one of those drums had like a layer of wax. Not everyone, but a lot of them did. So we had to go and we had to like get rid of this stuff. Not rid of it, but go back over it, clean it all up again. There was some learning. There was a learning curve, a lot of learning curves, a lot of different stuff to where it was going to be to the point to where, I realized pretty quick, like that's really not the path I wanted to be on, just because you don't really have a control of that many products going out like that. You're not going to be in it. Where if I'm talking to the actual drummer and we're working out a relationship, I'm trying to achieve exactly what he wants in sound and in visual. I feel more satisfied to do that versus, because then it feels like it's about the money, and it's never been about the money for me. Like I've always can easily go out and make more money doing other stuff. This has always been about the passion, the heart, the love for drums, music, and just creating your own sound. And, and it's one of them things, once we got kind of started with it, it was kind of always kind of hard to just stop. It just kind of kept momentum and, and the drums are tough, man. It's tough. And there's times where I'm like, I'm done. This is my last drum I'm doing. I ain't doing no more. And then somebody will call me and I was like, okay, we'll do this one. Because it's got to the point to where, I don't have to do it right now. And I do it because I love to do it and I want to do it. But it's not where this is where my income is depending on now. And it's almost kind of like now you have an art and just really can get really cool things with that. Not just, well, here's your drum, give me some money. It's not about it's never been about the money with me. It's always about the product, touching lives, making people happy, being that, and even that, it's just, it's caused me to really kind of step back and see exactly where I want to go with the next chapter. And that's not saying we're not going to do that again, or we may do that again soon. But for right now, I'm enjoying the fact where, somebody sends me a pile of logs from their granddaddy's farm. It's like, hey, make me a drum kit out of it. Okay. And, where that's kind of where it's at. That's where it's at to me.
So you're not pushing to meet production goals and hit budgetary,
No, not too much right now. Danny, he helps a lot with the business part of the aspect of it. I kind of come in there and do a lot of the, it depends on our load. If I need to speed things up, I definitely can do that. And I have access to get help if I need to. But for the most part, I found like, there's always problems kind of involved. Like if you are trying to get more drums out, well, now you got to have more help. And now there's going to be more things you got to have your hands on, more things you got to watch for and this and that. And it pulls you out of the creative space and the zone, because now you're it almost kind of feels like a production line, where I hated the production line. I hated that stuff. I've never really sought after that at all. And to me, having the uniqueness of doing one-offs, one-of-a-kind pieces has always been very special to me. So when somebody sees an Outlaw drum, it's not like, hey, now the Bandit series is probably going to be the most popular series, just because there was maple stave, a bunch of different types of finishes that we did. And those are going to be the ones that are kind of more on the lines of mass produced, I guess you could say,
So define mass produced for Outlaw drums.
Mass produced is going to be like 150, 200, maybe even, there's probably about 500 Bandits floating around out there, 500 of them. But there's probably going to be, maybe a couple thousand unique ones, so there's not like tens of thousands of Outlaw drums out there. So if you see one, it's probably pretty rare,
So 5 years from now, what do you see yourself doing out here? Are you just kind of being a holding pattern from what you're doing now, or do you ever see this thing being more of a, obviously you could take a creative position, keep your creative position, and have a production manager and production workers. Do you ever see that happening, or are you pretty much just going to keep this a more intimate, unique type situation?
I like them. I do like keeping it more unique and intimate. I don't really ever see myself going down that line to where we're just busting out drums, and unless we can do something that's not here, maybe something like that could possibly work, once we get something developed and the satisfaction is there and the quality is there enough to where I can fully trust in the process with it, and then rely on that, maybe so, in the future, maybe. But as of right now, man, I'm just loving life. I'm loving it because I'm able to deal with one-on-ones with the drummers and be able to create a sound and create a drum that's very uniquely theirs, and it's one of a kind. There's not, and being able to kind of shoot that down to where it needs to be. And that's where I see myself. And just, spirituality has always been a big thing for me too. And just being able to just kind of get flowed and led by the Spirit and just be able to know exactly what to do. And, define that where, okay, this makes me happy if I'm doing, because my thing is 500 drums or one drum. I mean, one drum is just as good as 500 in my eyes, having a lot of a particular thing is not necessarily a great thing sometimes, because it can cause a lot of extra stress and extra, because you see big companies, sometimes they have to recall whole lines of drums that they've done for the drum finishes. And like as finishes, this, like spraying and getting all that stuff just right and the perfect climate, because a lot of people struggle with, a lot of companies struggle with their finishes, because that's another thing. Like you have to have a really good skilled spray guy to be able to, trust enough to be able to put these lines of drums out, because that's the last thing you want finishes to be cracking, 1 year, 2 years later or whatever, And even like those old natural cellulose lacquers you see on a lot of old guitars and stuff like that. Even now you see them, and they're all kind of, they got the yellowish color, and a lot of times the finish is cracked, because, natural cellulose, and there's no way of knowing. I mean, how are you going to fast forward 30 years and be like, hey, this is what it's going to look like in 30 years? You have to try it. But now we know, so, I try to use more, and just using that knowledge, pushing it forth to even implement it towards the drums. So now we're able to, use a better material that doesn't yellow and that doesn't crack, and it just gets, it doesn't, but at the same time still has a uniqueness about it.
So what would you want somebody to know about your product that you haven't already touched on?
I would say, we make very unique, one-of-a-kind snare drums that can, just by changing the angles, just by edges, just by changing stuff, you can really increase the sound like crazy, and you can make something be very unique. And but if somebody's out there that really wants something unique and has a very very special idea of kind of what they're wanting to achieve, like if they wanting to, like we've made a drum out of an old is a hog fence that a guy had, and he sent me a piece of wood out of it. It was his granddaddy's hog, and it was literally, when I was milling it, you could smell the aroma of the wood and with the hogs around it. So that was different. It was different. But stuff like that, man, it's kind of like, yeah, something different, something tired of the same old. People get tired, and I do. I just get tired of seeing the same stuff. I want something different. I want something kind of unique, that's special. And forget all the massive stuff. Forget all the trying to go and do and more and this and that. Let's just get really one amazing drum, and that's kind of what I think like that. And I've found like a group of like-minded people. We got like a small community of drummers that play our stuff and that are there and that support what we do. And it's very cool. It's a very good community, and constantly listening to opinions and different ideas that come in, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, it is just a circle in a sense. It's just a circle, but there's a lot of things that affect that circle. The thickness, the height, the stamina, what it's made of, the wood, the density, the angles, the lugs, how many lugs. So, and the wood type is just one little small part of it. It would be very cool, man. We could definitely It wants something uniquely different. That's what I think.
So what else could somebody come to you for if they weren't looking for a fresh build, but they had an old set that they were having trouble tuning or wanted refinishing? Do you do that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff like that. Have like old vintage drums that, like especially like old Ludwig drums that, you know, it's been from the 40s or 50s or whatever, and edges need to be, because back then, you know, sometimes these edges need to be tightened up, they need to be sharpened, and a lot of times we do a lot of repair work on old vintage drums and stuff like that. I got my slab in the back. We'll put them on that slab. I had a guy come over last week and brought me like 14 vintage Ludwig drums that he just messaged me back yesterday, and he was just like, oh my God, these things sound freaking amazing. Thank you so much. And he's able to find that sound, because that's a lot of times that's what he is, because you think about that. When drummers, they're going to be hitting on, sometimes they'll hit the edges of the drums, that sticks, with their sticks, and it'll cause little dips and ripples over time. You know, they get hit and they're exposed. They are exposed. And it's very, I mean, I didn't realize it until really getting into this, how important that was. Even just like once you get an edge down, you don't set it down just anywhere. Once that edge is like polished and sanded, it's very sharp, and just setting it down on anything could cause just a little bit of a dip, and getting it flat is very important. And we do a lot of restorations on vintage drums, and it's really able to, you know, it's another little part that it's very fun to do. I love seeing like how things were made, you know. And
well, that brings up another question. How do you feel like these drums that you were working on, how do you feel like the production quality was compared to modern stuff? Now, you have mentioned that a lot of what you were doing was fixing issues from over time, but as far as the original build quality, do you think there's a difference between that and modern standards? Because we probably live in the golden age of equipment. I mean, you know, the processes are down better than ever. Companies are really putting out high quality products and hitting really high standards and all that. So did you see much of a difference in what was going on when those were built as opposed to production processes now?
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of different changes in how like the different drums are being made. One of the was, I mean, especially like, and you see like vintage Ludwig drums. I mean, they used to just literally like incorporate the wrap into the actual bend of the shell, so there's no way to take that wrap off. It's actually a part of it. It's in the inside, like it goes all the way through it. And it's not round. It's not round at all. It goes, because it can't be, because those pieces overlap, and there's always like a dip on a lot of those old vintage drums, and you see that. And now you see like the quality that they're putting out now, and how everything's more consistent, more. It's just the more you get something round, the more cleaner the tones are going to be. Not to say that that's going to sound bad, because it does still bring a nice vintage, different sound, different tone to it, especially when you put different edges on it. Which with the one that we just did last week, it was just like nothing was straight on it at all. It was just like, it's very crooked. The edges were this and that, and he wanted to put a 30-degree angle. So how in the world are you going to put a 30-degree angle on a drum that's already have a 45? Because you have to take the shell down smaller. So that's what we did. And we took the shell down smaller enough to where we flattened them, then come in and put a vintage edge of a 30-degree angle on it, and then was able to, and that's what he said. He said it sounds so much better and cleaner, and there's a lot of factors that kind of go into why it sounds like it does. You know, I'm not going to really get into that, but there you can see a big increase of how things are made, and that's kind of what we're doing. We're innovating. We're trying to figure out different things that work better, stable. That's not going to that's continue, because, you know, I don't want no callback. I don't want nobody calling me back and saying, hey, this drum is broke, or this don't sound good, you know, what's going on here. I want people to be like, man. And, you know, like I said, I've always honor people that has been, you know, especially like our endorsing group, you know, that's playing our stuff and always, you know, seems to give me positive feedback, you know, and I'm not always looking for like positive feedback. You know, I want to see, what can I do better? What can I do? How can I push this envelope a little bit more? What I got to do to really just make this drum sound even better? Because there's always a level of better. To me, you can always, now, be a little bit better, a little bit better, a little more, a little bit more. You know, can I make the toms a little bit more richer? Can I make them fuller? Can I make them not resonate so much that all you hear is resonation? But at the same time, when you hit that drum, doom, it's just enough to where it's not just gonna clogs up the mix. And I call it like it muddies up the mix, especially a lot of drums that ring. And that was kind of my thing from the old drum kit that I had. It just rang all over the place. It's just like I couldn't even hardly tell what toms I was hitting because the notes was all kind of intertwining. But I wanted to be able to hit, move, and then get out the way fast, you know. And that's kind of what that's always been my goal, is to improve. I've always got that mindset of you know, what's next? How can we make this better? And that's what's developed the new sound control series. You know, that's what really kind of helped me with that, is just, you know, the material. Because stave is kind of a new thing. That's not something that's been around forever. You know, it's kind of relatively new. They've been doing it for a while. And the Brady drums, like Chris Brady, now he's a master at doing this stuff from Brady drums, and he was able to really transform a lot of that stuff because nobody even heard of that kind of stuff, you know, and just the way the construction is done, you know. So cause you think about it, because, you know, typically the grain of drums are going this way, which is going to cause them to be a little bit more ringy. But when they go up vertical, it's going to cause them to be less, have a little more less ring. Not to say they still won't ring, but the way that the sails go up and down the wood planks makes the drum. It does affect which way the direction, just like it affects, you know, a lot of different things. A lot of variables affect things, you know. That's why it's very interesting to have drums done in certain ways, and then like play it, and then just don't change nothing else to it, because now you got to start and play, and now just like, now let's change the edges on it and put it back together just like it was. Or the snare beds, you know, put medium beds on it. Now let's put a little deeper beds on it, and let's hear it under a microphone. Can you hear the difference on that? And, you know, we've developed kind of over the years a method that we've found like it's really kind of works great with different things, you know. So always having that mindset of moving forward to the next chapter is always on the forefront.
Well, as a gearhead, I look forward to see what else you come up with. I mean, it's very exciting and refreshing that instead of resting on your laurels, you know, you're looking for constant improvements, you're looking for new ideas, new materials, and all that kind of thing. So to wrap this up, tell us about the highlights along the way. What couple of things just really jump out at you as being something you never expected to happen, or, you know, if you could go back and relive a particular moment in the life of Outlaw Drums, what would it be?
That's a good question. I would say just the highlight of my part is just being able to meet just the amazing people that we've been able to encounter and meet, and just the openness that people have been able to have for what we were doing, you know, because I was a little nervous coming into it. I mean, just like even early when we started putting the drums out, you know, you just don't never know how people are going to accept it, you know, and just being able to meet the different styles and different flavors of drummers, you know, different genres. And the highlights have just been, I guess, you've been able to, in a sense, I didn't realize that, like, how, for say, and I don't want to say like popular, but kind of like how popular, like, drum builders can possibly be, you know, because it's like you're not an artist, for say, but then it's like it's weird because now the artist almost come to you. So it's like, because the artists really respect the gear, and I didn't realize that was going to take place. You know, when you have very popular people call and just like want to talk about this and that, and just respect your decision. I mean, respect what you think about different, you know, the drums and stuff like that. That was kind of really kind of shocked, you know, because I didn't ever think about anything like that. I was just really just trying to make something different, you know, something just like anybody else, just trying to find my own little niche in the world, you know, because originally I was going to make tables. I was going to start a branded table. I was going to do branded cabinets and branded furniture and that kind of stuff too. And the drums just kind of grew, and it kind of went to other things. But I was blown away of a lot of the responses, especially like the drum shows. My wife, she jokes on me a lot because it's like when we go to these drum shows, it's like it's really kind of weird. Your ego kind of has a tendency to want to go up a little bit, you know. And Shanna always has to say, you know, you have to come home, and she like tell me to like take out the trash and this and that, and like do this and do that, and try to bring me down. I was like, what? I'm so freaking high right now. You know, you almost kind of feel really good. It's just crazy because people will actually, because you've doing something that they can resonate with. And now, you know, and they've grown to see you grown. So now it's like, man, you've been in their life for, you know, the past 10 years. And it's very unique and it's very amazing to be able to see the popularity that kind of comes with this. And I always just try to like, everything is equal to me. Everything's equal. People are equal to me. And I try not to put on different masks when I'm talking to like a real popular drummer and just like everybody's the same. I try to keep that mindset no matter where I'm at, you know, and it's through that meditation that I was able to do that. But that's kind of been really one of the things is being able to see and identify that and, just have a deep appreciation of what God's given me and just kind of utilizing the resources that are on hand. Now, we did make some big mistakes early. We did make some big mistakes early that I wish we hadn't have done. That I've kind of got myself, my ego kind of got flared up, and next thing you know, we need more, and that's kind of what your mind always wants to tell you. You need more, when actually, really, you just need to be less and just use the resources that you got on hand, that you're available. You know, Lord don't want you to go out there and just borrow every single dime that you can get, and now you're stressed to try to make payments on this and that, and now it's not fun no more. The minute you start making money on something, and that's your main source of income, it seems like it's not no more. Like your love for it depreciates, you know, and I want to keep the drums on that level. And I think that's one of the reasons why if we go down that path again, where we're just, I can only physically build so many drums in a day, you know, and we're a mass produced them. I'm going to lose the touch on that. And it's not going to be a true outlaw drum. Outlaw drum, I want to be unique. I want to be different. When somebody sees one, I want to go, hey, there's not a lot of these around. And, you know, so I think that's really important to me is be able to have a space and, you know, in the market. And I'm so honored to even have a little bit of small little niche that we do have, you know, and originally I was real pushy with it. I was real pushy early. I'd be like my page, or I'm freaking never going to talk to you again if you don't like my page. I take stuff so personal. I don't know more, though. I let that go.
Now, to build on what you just said, do you have friends that are drummer friends that aren't outlaw customers, and how do you feel about that?
Oh, God, I love it. Those are my favorite. Those are the favorite because those are the ones that are like, I don't feel like they're trying to get something from me. You know, they're just kind of, they're good guys, man. And my whole thing is, you know, you don't have to be an outlaw drum fan to be my friend, you know, and I think not everybody's going to like your stuff. Not everybody you're going to win over. But at the same time, you know, keeping that growth with it, you know, keeping that growth and having that uniqueness about it, you know. I know we did a longer version of the podcast, and there's a lot of nuggets on there. Because that's one of the things that once you get going with a podcast, and unless you do a podcast and actually have a part in it, it's hard to kind of gauge some stuff when you're in the moment of talking about something that you're very passionate about, because all this stuff is unscripted, or we just kind of going off the cuff and how it goes. But so what would you say, like, so you kind of you went down a very unique path too for searching after this dream and goals of drums as well, right?
A couple of times I've kind of really stepped out of my comfort zone. One time was when I had my drum shop, and then the other one was about a year ago, you know, moving to New England.
So tell me more about that. So when you moved to New England, and we talk about it more in depth in the podcast show, like what was the objective to move to New England, and what was the reason for that?
Well, kind of to reinvent myself to a degree. I've been doing some things that didn't necessarily appeal to me. I was, you know, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you enjoy it, and vice versa. And so it was just time to kind of break the mold and start over. And I'd been friends with Shane for quite a while, and we really meshed when we finally met in person and all that. And so, just break away. And when I traveled up to New England. I went all the way to Maine for dinner one night and all that.
So if I don't know who Shane is, who is Shane?
Shane with the Drum Center of Portsmouth.
I know who Shane is, but just in case.
Right. Well, yeah. And
it's one of the biggest drum shops in the world, by the way.
It is the largest independently owned drum shop in the world. Yeah. But anyway, so Shane and I have had about 20 years of interaction. We were on the same Sonar message board on the sonarmuseum.com. We were competitors for a while he was still working for a company out of Maine, and then he broke out on his own after my business went under. And like I mentioned before, I never intended to be in business. I never had a real solid game plan. I never really gave thought to, how am I going to improve things from month to month. I just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and it didn't work. Well, Shane, in that regard, had a much better business acumen, and he took very modest beginnings and made something phenomenal out of it. And so I got really excited about going up and being a part of that after, all these years. And, then when I get there, I've transplanted myself, so I don't know anybody or anything up there to speak of. And, economically, it really wasn't a great thing, having been an entrepreneur. And, anyway, so I wound up coming back. I don't have any regrets about going up there or anything, but
I feel a little bit of frustration in your voice.
My frustrations with, I try to leave people better than I found them. And me and Shane, I've reached out to him a number of times, including within the last month or maybe 5 weeks. I've traveled up there with the specific purpose of seeing him and trying to see him one-on-one, and that didn't happen. So I mean, that's some disappointment there. I don't regret going. It was an interesting experience. I regret what happened to my relationship with Shane, and I definitely regret whatever his feelings are. Be it, he might be pissed off at me, he might be disappointed, he might be embarrassed. I don't know. I don't know what that was all about. But whatever it is, I've made a solid effort to try to get beyond that. And if he ever reaches out, I'd be glad to hear from him. But at this point, I'm just gonna move it along. It's just time to let it go and move on. But it was a fun experience. Got to do a few things that I otherwise wouldn't have got to do. When I got there, it was absolutely a beautiful time of the year. There were all kinds of good places to eat up there, and people were different. The demographics were different. It's an interesting 6 weeks of my life.
I see.
So what do you see yourself doing now? Like, what's the next step?
I don't know. The group I'm involved in, we do the trucking related stuff. We've got a new division opening up, and I'm planning on being active in that. And I've been a Sonar fan for a long time, and I'm kind of piddling with that again, like I did before I made the misstep of becoming an authorized dealer. And I don't anticipate ever doing that again. But I do like working on things, and that was a big problem for me. Is for so many years I sat in front of a computer talking on the phone. I'd rather be doing something. I would rather be physically building, fixing, putting something. I'd rather be putting cheap furniture together at Big Lots than, for minimum wage, than sitting there in front of a computer on the television or on the telephone.
I noticed about you too, because you're the one that you're the only one. I mean, you're probably 1% of the people that I know that would come out here and just not immediately just jump right behind the drums. Like, you're the drummer to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. That was just you're gonna be like, when they say they need a drummer, you're gonna sit down at the kit, and you're not gonna play until they start playing the song.
Exactly.
I guess I made a joke about the non-drummer player I've ever seen.
Well, I know that I'm not a drummer's drummer. I don't have anything to prove. I'm not going to sit there and impress you with my elaborate playing ability or anything. I do my thing. And,
Isn't it the funnest types of drummers to play
with? Me being a guitar player too, I mean, those are the kind that I want. I don't want a drummer that puts so much stuff in and I can't hear anything when I'm doing.
Well, you know what? I've seen, I'm real sensitive to things going on around me. And I've seen where, the drummer comes in last to set up, and the band's up there trying to tune, and he's making all kinds of noise and, busting somebody's eardrums. And, I've seen that lately. And if I was ever like that, it's been a long time. And what you were saying, I think is correct. When I played with Mac George, I would get there well before everybody else. So when everybody else gets there, my stuff's set up. I've got everything tweaked. I don't make a sound until sound check. I'm not going to sit there and whap on the snare drum and, do other silly stuff while somebody's trying to tune up.
You do all that before.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You have to tune before you bring it onto the set, right?
Yeah. Well, everything's tuned before I load it up, but I will go through, and if I need to fine-tune something, I mean, the heat and all that, something to get a little bit of out. And I'm kind of anal about my, to be such a non-drumming drummer, I'm really anal about my gear. I'm really funny about having everything dialed in just right, because I'm not going to make a lot of hits on those drums, but I want them to sound good when I do. Right. And, the sound people always seem to really enjoy, my tuning and all that. And they always work. They never asked me to change anything. I never had to go back and retune something because it wasn't right, or the snare wasn't coming off right or whatever. So.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate your appreciation on drums, because I know that you're like an avid. You and Tim Davis are like, I don't know anybody else that love more of a Sonar drums than you do, and that's really special, and I really value our friendship too, because it's not one of them things where you don't even have an Outlaw drum, so it's just like we're friends, we're buddies, and it's not hey, try to play this, or it's a very awesome relationship,
Well, to reciprocate, I appreciate the fact that I can be your friend without having to be your customer. And that's not to put down Outlaw drums or anything, and I will eventually buy one, and I'll probably actually get you to let me come out here and build it myself. But that will happen, but I like the fact that I can be who I am and not put a false pretense, or, there's not a price tag, a drum price tag associated with being your friend or coming out here and, helping out here and there, or. Before we jump off here, you've got a drum building experience.
Oh, yeah, experience, yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, so we have an experience, and we're accepting dates for the next few months of experience where you come to Georgia and you have a hand in building your own custom drum with us. And basically, we go through the whole process from milling the drum, picking out the wood, from milling it to putting it together, from the whole 9 yards, and not to mention that you get to stay out here with us, and we play music, we jam, we talk drums, and it's just kind of like it's like a hangout vibe, not more set on like for real tutorial steps on how to do this, but you see how to do it. We'll show you how to do it. You have a hand in it, but not for say like your hand's not going to be like cut off, but you're there with me doing stuff one-on-one just for a few select people. And so if you're interested in doing anything like that, let me know, because the bookings are kind of filling up and the slots are available. But it's a 2 or 3 day experience where you come here to South Georgia, stay with us, and we go through the process of building you a custom snare drum for once. The prices are they range from about $2,000 to about $3,000, all inclusive. But it's going to be really, really fun experience, and that's for small groups. But yeah, I'm super excited about this. This is the one of the things you get to kind of show from the asset. Like, here's a piece of wood, let's make it round. Like, how we do that, and we go through everything with it, cutting it. And this is one of the things that I'm probably most excited about right now, because you get to see that newness and you get to interact with people. And it's more like an experience. You get to learn a lot of stuff, especially if you're unsure about different things. We talk about a lot about drum physics and about things like that. Also, we go into some meditation and about self-awareness and that kind of stuff too. So it's a well-rounded program that we're putting together here, and it all kind of maps out where from day one all the way till day 3, and there's always something going on, and you stay right here and all inclusive. And so if you want more details about that, just kind of let me know about it, because it's going to be super fun. Well, Julian, man, I just want to say, man, thank you so much for coming out here and being on the podcast show, man. And this has been an awesome experience, And if anybody wants to learn any more about we went more in depth on a lot of this stuff is on the previous episode on the process show. We go on a little bit more in depth on a lot of these stories that we're kind of talking about here. And just want to say thank you so much, and thank you for all our Patreons, and thank you for all y'all support over there. It really means the world.
Man, I just want to say thank you so much, guys, for hanging out to the complete end of this episode. Yeah, it's a great day today. We got so much to be thankful for. And super shout out to Julian for doing this podcast for us. And super shout out for Cody helping us with the sound and engineering. We had so much of a great time doing this. Until next time, we're going to put the second part of this episode on next week's podcast show. And we'll be able to hear Julian's version of this show's episode. But thank you again so much. Peace. Also, the first person that comments shirt on the next post that we make on social media, I'm going to send you a free Outlaw Drums t-shirt. So just want to say thank you, guys. I love you so much, and God bless you, man. See ya.